Welcome to the next episode of the Dark Web Deacon. Before we begin, be sure to smash that subscribe button, click the bell to turn on notifications. New videos are published every Monday and Thursday, and as always, be sure to like and provide comments. On this channel, we've talked a lot about the type of data that is available on the dark web. But in this episode, we're going to dive into the 6 groups that are responsible for leaking and publishing data on the dark web. The first 5 groups are doing it mostly for malicious purposes, and those are Script Kitties, Organized Crime, Crypto-Anarchists, Disgruntled Employees, and NationStates, and we're going to go through each one. So, Script Kitties. In programming and hacking cultures, a script kiddie or a skiddy or a skid is an unskilled, generally individual who uses scripts or programs developed by others to attack computer systems, networks, or deface websites. It is generally assumed that most script kiddies are generally juvenile or younger, for sure, who generally lack the overall ability or writing sophisticated programs to exploit on their own. And their objective is usually to try to impress their friends or to gain credit in a lot of computer enthusiast communities. Script kiddies vandalize websites both for the thrill of it and to increase their reputation among their peers. Some more malicious script kiddies have used virus toolkits to create and propagate the things like the Anna Kournikova virus and the Lovebug virus. One of the most common types of attacks utilized by script kiddies involves a form of social engineering, where the attacker somehow manipulates or tricks the user into sharing their information. This is often done through the creation of fake websites where the users input their login, often in the form of phishing attacks, thus allowing the script kiddie to gain access through their account. The next group is organized crime. Cyber organized crime doesn't match the common stereotype when we think of organized crime traditionally. Research from Michigan State University is one of the first to identify common attributes of cybercrime networks, revealing that these groups function and work together to cause an estimated 445 to 600 billion in harm globally per year. Criminal groups do seek to attack systems for monetary gain. That is their primary focus. Specifically, organized crime groups will use spam, phishing, spyware, malware to commit identity theft and online fraud. Criminal hacking is usually designed to target the largest number of victims in order to increase the chances that someone will click on a malicious link or mistakenly transfer money. In the Michigan State University study, cybercriminals did work in organizations, but these organizations differ depending on the offense. They may have relationships with each other, but they're not the multi-year, multi-generation, sophisticated, structured organizations that you associate with typical organized crime. Many of these criminals are connected online, at least initially, in order to communicate and to basically build some initial rapport. In some of the bigger cases, there's a group of actors who know each other fairly well, who then develop an ancillary network of people who they can use for money muling or for converting the information they have obtained illegally and to try to turn it into actual cash. The next group is Crypto-Anarchists, and this is definitely the most complex group to really pin down in terms of motivations. One of the motives of Crypto-Anarchists is to defend against surveillance of computer network communications. Crypto-Anarchists also try to protect against a government mass surveillance, so those are fairly noble goals. A second concern and motivation is the invasion of privacy, particularly internet censorship, on the grounds of freedom of expression. The programs used by crypto-anarchists often make it possible to both publish and read information off the internet or other computer networks anonymously. A third kind of motivation is to build and participate in counter-economics, which includes the development of viable alternatives to banking systems and development of alternative financial systems which provide things such as greater privacy and anonymity. Cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and services like Silk Road and other black markets made it possible to trade goods and services with little interference from the law. However, over the last several years, these particular markets have been used to sell a lot of illegal information and potential illegal products. So this is where kind of it gets a little bit gray between the noble goals of protecting against illegal mass surveillance and anonymity and privacy. Anonymous, which is probably the most famous of these crypto-anarchist group, is known for waging online attacks against anyone, from the US government to the Church of Scientology, to even trying to dismantle vast social network operations that help ISIS recruit new followers. So they really aren't tied to a specific country or a particular ideology. Their guiding principles are that of freedom should be available to anyone, and those who hoard information need to be dealt with. The fourth biggest subgroup who's responsible for leaking information on the dark web is disgruntled employees. An employee with access to confidential company information, such as a company's financial records, employee payroll information, intellectual property, or who is heavily part of the product supply chain, all are possible candidates. According to a 2016 Gartner blog, insiders are being actively recruited by criminals operating on the dark web. Disgruntled employees working at companies across many sectors, such as financial services, pharma, retail, tech, and government, are gladly selling their services to the quote-unquote bad guys in order to inflict harm on their employers. Seeking harm and revenge on employers is a bigger incentive for the insider threats than is stealing money from employers, according to Gartner. Gartner's clients in this study say that the reason for the increase is insider threats is in fact the ease at which disgruntled employees can get back and harm their employers by selling their insider knowledge and services to bad guys on the dark web. All they have to do is log on to Tor, make their available services known, and their criminals are happy to pounce on their offers and make them an offer they can't refuse. The final group we're going to look at responsible for publishing, selling, and buying data on the dark web are nation-states. Nation-state hackers target government agencies, critical infrastructure, and any and all industries known to contain sensitive data or property. Typically, they strike via sophisticated techniques that interrupt business operations, leak confidential information, and generate massive data and revenue loss. State-sponsored hackers are often identified by their dedication to a specific target. For example, in North Korea, the group Lazarus, also known as Hermit or Dark Soul, usually targets South Korea, the United States, financial organizations for monetary gain. Most nation-state threat groups limit their activities to espionage or destruction. The additional practice of financial cybercrime seems to be somewhat unique to North Korea, according to researchers. The Lazarus Group was also behind the massive Sony data attacks and doxing attacks, and one of its subgroups has been tied to attacks on cryptocurrency exchanges and the SWIFT banking network. In Russia, there's a group called Fancy Bear, also known as Sednit or APT28. They usually attack primarily those in Europe and tend to include government ministries. Through past attacks, they've targeted global embassies in the United States. They are tied to the attacks on the Democratic National Committee, International Association of Athletics Federation, and the German Parliament. And they have been known to be responsible for trying to influence the 2016 US presidential election. The third kind of hotspot is Eastern Europe, and there's a group called Sandworm, also known as Black Energy or Iridium. They usually attack Ukraine. They're tied to Ukrainian attacks against its power grid in December of 2015 and 2016, and other security researchers have also linked the group to the last summer's NotPetya attack, a destructive campaign which is also primarily targeted Ukraine. And then the fourth hotspot is in Iran, and there's a group called APT35 with pseudonyms known as Charming Kitten and Newscaster. And their targets have global range, but recently they focused on the Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia and Israel. APT35 focuses on social engineering through social networks. Attackers create fake personas in social networks and use them to infiltrate organizations by sending links to employees. So those are the 5 primary groups that are responsible for maliciously or intentionally leaking or publishing or buying or selling data on the dark web: Kitties, organized crime, Crypto-Anarchists, Disgruntled Employees, and nation-states. But at the start of this video, I mentioned 6 groups. And the 6th group is actually non-malicious, and it's human error of IT groups. So a lot of data often gets leaked onto the dark web due to weak network access protocols, access controls, or permissions that lead to the infiltration of networks or have full databases being stolen. This has been an increasing problem as companies rapidly move to the cloud without proper training or expertise and assume the cloud vendor, whoever that is, will securely protect the data and the infrastructure by default. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like, subscribe, and provide comments, and turn on notifications by clicking the bell in order to check out future videos published twice a week.